Hey everyone, today we're gonna get back into this. It's going to have a repair of a deck. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this because, well, in parts of it. We'll get pretty deep in some parts, but not all. Basically, we have a couple problems. Obvious hole. This hole is strangely circular, and then you look across the way and you see a handle. There's 4 handles on here, at least there's supposed to be, and there's only one. Oh, excuse me, 3, so one is missing. So we need to fix the deck, fix the handle, and the owner wants me to paint it. I'm not a painter, so that's going to be a little interesting, but you know, we'll take that as it comes. What we do need to do, though, is we definitely need to get this cleaned up. So I'm going to weld on it first. So you see all this grass everywhere? We need to get rid of it. I mean, everywhere. You know. So I'm going to spend some time to do that. In addition, I have a wire brush on my grinder, or maybe my drill. I don't really know which one I'll use right now, but I'm going to wire brush where paint is coming off, and the excess amount of dirt, take off a couple of the springs, pulleys, all that. So I'm going to get it prepared. I probably should take off these two. So I'm going to get all that done, but more or less we're just going to get this back basically down to the bare deck. That way we can get it welded. The part I'm not going to show too much is this. This is a interesting shaped piece, and then that doesn't make it any easier. This metal is roughly, I want to say, 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/16. I haven't measured it entirely, but I do not have 1/4, but I do have 3/16 steel. It's definitely steel, so we're good to go on that. I'm going to be kind of taking this steel I have and just kind of wrapping it into this little radii that we have going on here. Not going to show that just because if you are watching this, you probably know how to do that, and it's going to be a long process and boring, not going to lie. So I'm going to get that piece prepared. Get everything taken off. It's just a bunch of bolts. Get that taken off, get this down to the bare deck and get it cleaned, and then I will bring it back to show you the final result. Okay, got a lot of it done. There's still places like right here that have not been done completely yet. It's still pretty scaly, but pressure washed it, got a lot of the crap off, and I'm just gonna go on there with like a grinder and take off the rust. But that got to be really rough, so I decided to get welding. So I made this. Something to note though, so I did cut out the bad piece of metal because I don't want water to get underneath it. So I'm gonna get that welded in. I don't know if I'll show that, maybe, but I'm gonna be TIG welding it, so it's gonna be a little bit of a process. So I will bring you back once it's done. It's actually the next day. I had to go and take care of a few errands, unfortunately, so I had time to take a look at a few things as well. So this is really rusty. Now, you can tell by the welds a nice clean metal and the welds not so nice. Now granted, this material is a tad thinner than that, so it's a little hard. But at the same time, if you've ever been a TIG welder, you understand that you probably should not be doing this with any type of rust. It needs to be perfectly clean, sanitized, pretty much, non-chlorinated, brake cleaner, acetone, everything needs to be clean in order to get the good weld. Having said that, I tried cleaning as much as I could, put the bright metal on both sides. The unfortunate part is some areas were just a little thin, mainly right there, and the excuse me, the weld just didn't quite take very well, so I put it in as far as I could, and it's holding, like it penetrated, but it's just getting a lot of rust, and it's just not wanting to cooperate. I did get it done though, so that's good. It was a little dirty. If anyone's ever TIG welded with a little rust underneath, even though you thought you took it out, because not only did I put bright metal down here, I did it on the bottom. Unfortunate thing is, excuse me, there's like dust in here. Over here, there's just no going through that. I mean, I'm gonna clean it up a little bit more, but this is kind of like that deck that you really consider if you should even be fixing. I know I'm fixing it just because a new deck I think is $480, and I do not believe that comes with spindles or blades, or even, I think it's just the wheels and the deck. I don't think the pulleys are on there either. I could be wrong about the pulleys, I'm not 100% sure. And this person didn't want to pay that and asked if I would just do it, and I said yes, mainly because I wanted to work on it. Now, if it was mine, I would just buy a new one, because as you can tell, there's been some pretty significant damage to it. I scraped as much as I could off. I used, let's see, where is it? Aha. If you ever haven't used one of these, they're pretty amazing. I would highly recommend for rust removal. The unfortunate part is because they are a little bit on the large side, they don't get into nooks and crannies, so you have to use something else. So I spent a good while just fixing that, and just going in there with like a chisel, chiseling off the bad areas. I still have to blow it off, but it's pretty much done. I just need to weld this little area and completely clean it. I mean, I'm probably going to be using brake cleaner and wipe it completely down. I'm going to paint it, and the paint I chose is going to be one that specifically says you can paint over rust. I'm not going to. I'm going to remove as much as I can, obviously, but areas where you can't, especially when it's super degraded, you know, some areas where there'll be a little bit of rust, I'm hoping that will kind of negate some of the damage. Other than that, like I said before, when you do this, you don't want to weld directly on top of the hole. You want to cut it out. I have about 1/4 of an inch on either side, and that kind of allowed me to have a good bond, as well as have something to sit it on, and there's not going to be water going up underneath it and then further rusting the deck more, and then start rusting the plate. I don't want that. So I'm going to do is I'm going to get that welded up. I chose to actually do my MIG welder, and it's going to be a new experience. This is the first time I'm using my MIG welder, this particular one. I'm not a MIG welder per se. To me, MIG welding is actually a lot harder than TIG welding, so I usually like to TIG it, but for something like that, that's not too difficult. I can take care of that pretty easily. But like I said, that's just too much rust for my TIG welder. It was just exploding. I was just going through screens. It was disgusting. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then bring you back. Not going to have a very good view, but I also don't want to spray everything on, and I don't really have a good vantage point because I'm doing it inside. So fortunately there's not much I can do about it, so I apologize in advance. But let's get going. feel like my wire speed is too low. Let's try that. Well, that was definitely better. Like I said, I'm not a very good MIG welder, but we appear to have some good solid bead on there. I'm gonna go and do the other side real quick. Well, the front. Okay, I think we're set to go. Turn that off. And yeah, I think we're ready. Here we are, all painted. Looks pretty decent. There's a couple places I do need to catch, or there's a corner and a little on the weld area. But other than that, majority of it is painted. Like I said, it is pitted, so you can't really do too much about that. But other than that, that's it. So, like I said, this is probably the extent of what I would ever do. I would not want to do anything more than this for the sheer fact that it is pretty bad. I had to scrape off a decent amount of paint, and even when painting, it kind of scraped up a little bit more. So this is not a quick process. This is going to be me doing it again tomorrow. I did put the pulleys on because right here seems to be fairly sound, so I'm not too worried about that. My main concern is right there, maybe right there, and right there. Other than that, that's all you really need to worry about, is getting a good sound weld. Make sure there's no cracks. If it is thin, you're going to want to put a plate in there. You're going to want to cut it out and put a weld back on. If it's anything critical, like where the spindles go, don't even bother. Okay, well, it's a quick video, and I know some people may or may not agree with it, but this is how I would patch. Just patch what you need. Everything else is kind of where it is, and the rest of it can just be replaced once it needs to be. Majority of it, with the exception of a couple places, like I said, was salvageable, but when you have holes, you're really kind of losing a battle. It's just going to keep on happening. This is not a permanent fix. I told the person that's going to have this, it's probably going to be need to replace another 2-3 years, depending on how much you use and how well you take care of it. On the bottom, I am going to spray it. If you go on Amazon, get lawnmower deck protector. It's a spray you spray on the bottom. You pressure wash the bottom, which has been done, and you spray it on the bottom. It's like a wax coating. It kind of reminds me of bar oil. It prevents a lot of rust. But other than that, this is patching a deck. If you have any questions, any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next video, and have a good night.